Good morning, this is Ben. I wanted to respond to this video about, it's why not immortality, and it made me think of something I hadn't thought of in a long time, but to demonstrate it, I'm just going to say a little bit about ancient history. We often find arguments against the Bible being inspired by God coming to us in this form. They'll say the worldview and the philosophical understanding of the Bible evolves and improves over time, and that, here today we have even more improved, and there they are back in the past. And so there will be an argument against it being inspired by God. So the issue at this point is very simple. Is that true? And you'll see why this is relevant to immortality in a second. One of the arguments is that there was no concept of an afterlife in the Old Testament, and that people, borrowed that. Basically, they say the ancient Hebrews borrowed that from the Babylonians when they were in Babylonian exile and captivity. And the thing is that the concept of an afterlife was not a late-breaking concept in human understanding. This is what we call special pleading. This type of argument, because it ignores the facts that don't support it. In other words, the Egyptians and their huge pyramids and their huge devotion to the afterlife. And it's very old. It's very old. And it was well developed, well known, a huge influence on the area, and a lot of people worked on those pyramids, and that's what they were all about. Now here's the interesting thing. If the Hebrews were really exiles from Egypt in the first place, then why on earth isn't there more about the afterlife? It's amazing how little Egyptian influence there is on their way of thinking. And what we find, we find little bits and pieces in the Old Testament about the afterlife, but what we find is a huge influence on that there is just one God, and He is all that matters. Now this is what is interesting. I'll take you through a classic illustration. You take a 8-year-old girl and you tell her, little Tommy walked up to the door, opened the door, and there was a dragon. The 8-year-old girl goes, wow. You take a, more like 5-year-old girl, and you say, little Tommy got up, walked over to the door, and opened the door. For him, he doesn't need the dragon. It's just wow to open the door. You take a 2-year-old kid, and for that kid, you say little Tommy got up and walked to the door. That's a pretty big deal. There's a wow factor there. As humans, we have to ask ourselves, what would be a big enough and good enough and important enough reason to live forever? What would be the purpose of living forever? Who would want to live forever? Why would you want to live forever? My suggestion is simply that God is the only reason that someone would even want to live forever. Otherwise, it's just not worth forever, unless you have something of infinite greatness. The Hebrews seem to think this too. In other words, they emphasized, in light of all the emphasis on the afterlife that was present in the Egyptian world, they emphasized that there is this one God who is of utmost importance. And whereas in the Egyptian concept, they took this world with them, as they wanted to just continue this life just better. But the Hebrews seem to understand that there was a need in the human for something beyond what we are as humans, something that was beyond anything we could imagine, and that made life ultimately worth living, especially eternal life worth living. Thanks, bye.